After my sister's car door closed, I walked away, taking a deep breath, feeling the air, although similar, felt fresher and sweeter. Marcy embraced me and asked about our plans before going home. I requested a cold beer. She suggested Butt's Bar, which I agreed to. Memories of the Greystone Wall flooded back as we drove away my messy divorce, an unexpected turn of events from that July day when Amy, escorted by her father, walked down the aisle towards me during our wedding. Amy and I were practically inseparable since second grade, and it was widely believed we'd eventually marry. DNA testing later proved my wife's infidelity, which led to a court victory. Our romance mirrored a storybook tale, with an anticipated blissful conclusion. We opted to delay our marriage until post-college graduation and planned to defer starting a family until age 30, preferring first to traverse and taste life's adventures. Despite its ups and downs, our relationship was not free of obstacles. We parted ways on two occasions, once during the 11th grade and another in our sophomore year at college. Amy felt a desire to explore other romantic prospects. Our high school separation lasted merely 3 weeks. Upon her return, she acknowledged her error, describing it as foolish. While apart, I dated 5 women, but none compared to Amy. With classes and sports demanding my attention, I did not contemplate dating others. Both separations caused pain, but when Amy ended our relationship again in college, I sought other possibilities. It became clear that many women were not as committed to waiting until marriage as Amy had been. In 5 weeks, Bev Holbrook was my initial encounter. Nancy Newbert exposed me to novel experiences, while Harina Collins demonstrated diverse facets of intimacy. Paul and French educated me about shared enjoyment. Nonetheless, the notion that Amy could be experiencing comparable moments persisted. I recognized it as a double standard, yet wished I'd experienced those firsts with her. Approximately 6 weeks following Amy's decision to date other men, I returned home from class to find her on our porch steps. The situation echoed my high school years. I had unwittingly cherished the best with Amy. I sought her pardon. Having loved her for what seemed like an eternity, asking for forgiveness came instinctively. We never revisited our separation. Upon attempting intimacy with her, she expressed a desire to wait until marriage, which I respected. It was unsurprising to discover she wasn't a virgin on our wedding night. I sensed she understood I wasn't her first. For the following 4 years, we both secured jobs in our respective fields without any significant hiccups. Occasionally, my work required travel, but never for an extended period. However, that changed to 3 days at a time. On the day after Amy's 26th birthday, she revealed her pregnancy. This news was unexpected as we had planned to start a family when we turned 30. She clarified that medication for her flu affected her birth control pills. 9 months later, we welcomed Brian Lewis. Amy resumed work just 6 weeks post-delivery, as her workplace offered an on-site daycare. Soon after, she expressed a wish to have another child, preferring siblings close in age for easier upbringing. I supported this decision, and when she informed me 6 weeks later that she was pregnant again, I accepted it. During her 8th month, she expressed the thought of 2 children being sufficient and asked if I'd be all right with her getting her tubes tied. I felt it was her choice, and since she didn't wish to endure another pregnancy, I had no reason to object. In about a month, Susan Marie became part of our family. Similar to Brian, Amy utilized only 6 weeks of leave from work before returning, accompanied by both infants. Over the subsequent 6 years, each of us advanced twice in our careers, leading to a stable income. Appearing as an idyllic pair, we seldom quarreled and preserved a lively sexual relationship. We connected intimately approximately 3 times per week, which I perceived as impressive compared to other long-married couples with children. Our shared interests and enjoyment of each other's company made our time together enjoyable, and we eagerly anticipated seeing one another after work every day. The illusion of our harmonious, loving household was destroyed on a July day. Upon landing in Denver for a 3-day trip aimed at resolving delivery issues with our suppliers, I found that the company had been seized by the IRS earlier that same day due to unpaid payroll taxes. For some time, the company had faced financial difficulties. I swiftly returned to the airport and boarded the next available flight home without informing Amy. In the absence of communication, an unforeseen situation unfolded. It was around 5:20 p.m. and Amy wasn't home from work yet, so I decided to take her and the kids out for dinner instead. However, as I was working in our home office, the garage door opener signaled Amy's arrival. By the time I finished my work and logged off the computer program, she had already entered the house. As I prepared to leave the office, I overheard Amy saying, "Stop that," followed by a man's voice suggesting they continue in the living room instead. "You're quite eager, Hal," Amy commented. He replied, "Yes, and you like it. The couch isn't a bad idea. Should I take off my underwear or just move them aside?" Amy asked. He instructed her to remove them. Remembering the unease from the previous time he only moved them aside, I winced. The dialogue paused as Amy's satisfied noises echoed through the room, intermingled with her characteristic moans. That was painful to hear. I snatched my phone, switched it to camera mode, and made my way toward the living room. It didn't take a genius to figure out who I would find there. Hal, Amy's work supervisor. How could he be part of this? I had encountered him and his wife at numerous company events, such as Christmas parties and picnics. Unbeknownst to Amy, I had returned home. I had left my car at the dealership due to a brake recall and took a cab from the airport to avoid suspicion. I snapped 5 clear photos of them before they noticed me, followed by 3 more as they hastily disengaged. Once they became aware of my presence, I pocketed my phone and approached him. He understood my intentions from my expression, and unfortunately for me, he was heading toward the exit, and I wasn't blocking his path. Fortunately for him, he hadn't completely undressed. He had merely unzipped his pants before starting with Amy. He swiftly spun and sprinted towards the door, evading me before I could grab him. If not for Amy tripping me, I might have caught up. By the time I regained my balance, he was already departing from the house. Ignoring Amy, I headed to the kitchen, grabbed the phone book from its customary spot, and dialed Harold Bartram's number. As Amy entered the kitchen and inquired about my actions, I informed Janet of the news. Amy snatched the cordless phone and advised against it, saying, "This will only add to our existing troubles." I countered, "Don't you think we have enough problems, especially with Hal and Janet? It's all right for him to interfere in my life, but I must be cautious around him." "It's not about that," Amy protested. "We shouldn't cause harm to Janet. She's blameless in this entire mess." I disagreed. She's married to a deceiver, and she deserves to know the truth. If she decides to accept it, that's her choice. From now on, I intend to make his life difficult. I'll begin by informing Janet about the situation and offering to show her photos if she wishes to see them. Afterward, I'll consult with a lawyer regarding potential work-related actions against him. Given your company's policy manual, it should cover supervisor-subordinate relationships. In the end, I'll locate him, and when I do, he won't escape unharmed. Amy advised, "You shouldn't take those steps as they come with heavy costs." I inquired, "What kind of costs?" She warned, "If you encourage Janet to leave him, I might evict you, bringing him into our shared household with my children. If you sue the company, both Hal and I could lose our jobs. Without employment, I'll ensure that you pay substantial alimony and child support in a divorce. Moreover, if you resort to physical violence against him, you risk being charged with assault. Instead, it would be wise to move on from this situation and concentrate on our lives." "You want me to just forget about what I've found out?" was my response. You argued, "Why not? My partnership with Hal hasn't harmed us. We live well together. I've been a devoted wife to you. Our relationship is strong, and I truly love you. Can you sleep with him, then claim to still love me?" "Hal, is that possible?" I asked. "Yes, he is purely for physical satisfaction, intense physical encounters, but just physical. Intense, yet discovering you've been unfaithful, and then hearing your criticism of my performance." I sighed. "I never said you were lacking in the bedroom," Amy replied. "Then why cheat?" I asked again. Amy explained, "I haven't been untrue to anyone except Hal since we got married. You know what I mean? You're an excellent man, husband, and father. You're good in bed, but Hal offers something different that you can't. Remarkable. I excel as a husband and father, yet I'm just satisfactory in the bedroom. That sheds light on it, I said sarcastically. Ah, Al, Amy immediately responded. I didn't intend to suggest otherwise, but our relationship is thriving. There's nothing wanting on your part, however Hal provides something distinct that I find appealing. To which I inquired, what exactly do you mean by that? She replied, size, he is well endowed, and that adds a unique experience. In response, I said, size should not be the issue here. We've had a marvelous life so far. If I'm willing to allow this occasionally in our relationship, we can continue as usual. Nothing has changed us. This has been a part of our lives for years. We'll carry on just fine. Shaking my head in disbelief, I said, Amy, you never cease to surprise me. Yet, my interest was aroused. You claim this has been happening for years. How many exactly? I asked. She admitted, it began during college when we took a break. I wanted to experiment with other relationships. One of the first men I got involved with was well endowed, and it was quite exhilarating. It appears larger-sized individuals openly discuss their experiences, and this individual divulged my fervent reaction to others. I had 5 relationships with them, appreciating what they offered until I decided I wanted to be with you. This raises 2 queries, I stated. Firstly, if size was such a priority for you, why didn't you marry one of them? Amy clarified, they were all self-absorbed. They thought their size was the only important factor, assuming women should be grateful for the experience. I desired more than just physical gratification, and because I loved you, I chose to move on. The second question posed is, after spending nearly 6 weeks with well-endowed partners, why did you insist we wait until marriage to become intimate? Amy answered, I loved you, and I knew it. However, I had grown disillusioned with men following those experiences. I had no interest in becoming intimate. The situation wasn't fair to you, but that was my mental state at the time. I seem to remember it was during a company Christmas party that you weren't able to attend due to a business trip to Seattle. Under the influence of alcohol and feeling mischievous, Hal danced me under the mistletoe and kissed me. I felt his substantial body press against my leg. In a playful mood, I mimicked me West and said, is that a roll of quarters in your pocket, or are you just happy to see me? Hal, equally intoxicated, acknowledged it was indeed larger than a roll of quarters. Laughing, I replied, that's what they all say. Confident, Hal asserted he could prove it, and amused by my challenge, he did so. We spent the following 2 nights together. Our passionate encounters continued until he met and married Janet, but we still flirted. Our relationship rekindled when Janet became pregnant and started distancing herself from him emotionally. From then on, our connection never ceased. Amy asserted, we've been unaffected in a negative way. She needs to pick up her sister's kids because they went there after school. Amy left, stating she would show that nothing had changed upon her return. I was stunned by her actions, yet our relationship remained intact because of my ignorance. I doubted she could convince me she hadn't been with Hal after this, so I called Janet instead. Janet was troubled by the information and wanted to view the photos I took. We scheduled lunch for the following day. Janet advised me to keep Amy unaware about the call, fearing she might inform Hal. I will not take action until I have solid proof, then I will confront him. Upstairs, I started transferring my possessions to the guest room. As I hung my suits, a concerning thought crossed my mind. Amy had suggested, he can move in here with me and our kids, suggesting the children were hers and Hal's. I hadn't caught it at the time, but now it appeared plausible. Remembering Amy's revelation about her relationship with Hal, I understood that my visit to Seattle was approximately a year prior to when she announced her pregnancy with Brian. Could Hal be the father of my children? If so, they would face my anger. I had finished unpacking when Amy came home with the kids. Finding me in the guest room, she asked, "What are you doing?" I responded, maintaining a bit of distance between us. She seemed perplexed. "Why?" I reiterated to her. "I told you I'd prove that nothing has changed." Did you fail to recall our recent encounter 2 hours back? Are you suggesting I take Hal's remaining food scraps? Amy, you know I haven't had an issue with this before, right? Fine, I'll bathe first, I replied. You misunderstand me. I want no part in your affair. You're misconstruing things, Rob. I don't love Hal. I love you. I engage physically with Hal, but make love with you, Amy argued. However, your actions spoke differently when you suggested I depart and let Hal take residence, and there wasn't much affection in the tone of your divorce discussion. Amy clarified, I didn't mean it. I just wanted you to pause before dialing Janet. I responded, indeed. I took some time to ponder over it, Amy, which is why I relocated here. We are grown-ups, Amy. We can talk about this, but I need some personal space. She persisted, nothing has altered. I still feel for you, just not enough to halt my infidelity. I retired to spend time with the children, aiding them with their schoolwork and playing until bedtime. After moving into the new room, I heard the shower and contemplated Amy's statement, "You've never cared about this issue before." As sleep approached, Amy walked in. Sensing her effort to hug me, I jerked awake, shoving her off so forcefully she fell from the bed. The affair is out of bounds for me. Stay clear, Amy, I snapped. I adore you, Rob. We can work this out, she appealed. My response was resolute. There's no way, Amy. No chance. She exited the room, and I struggled to sleep. The night was restless, leaving me hazy by dawn. Amy had cooked breakfast, but I turned a blind eye, took my car keys, and went for breakfast at a nearby inn. Prior to work at 10, I phoned Mike Hooper, a reliable lawyer and friend, revealing my predicament and requesting a discussion on divorce. He consented to meet at Bud's bar at 5:30. I linked my phone to the computer, transferred photos of Amy and Bartram, printed 3 sets, then placed them in envelopes. By midday, I found Janet at Mario's. Upon seeing me, she stood up to greet me. I expressed my regrets about our meeting not being under better circumstances. We exchanged casual talk and ordered food. I shared the details of the previous day. I gave her the envelope with the photos, and she calmly inspected them, catching me off guard by her poise. She returned the photos to the envelope, inquiring, "Are you planning on divorcing her?" I responded, "After seeing that, reconciliation seems impossible." Janet hinted she might do the same. It wasn't his first transgression. Due to his size, she had forgiven him once but warned him it would be the last time. She mentioned that I might not get the chance to evict him. She promised to keep an eye out for him and warned me that he wouldn't escape lightly if she found him. She proposed placing him in a hospital and moving his belongings there. She suggested I kick him if caught, which I agreed to. Our conversation with Mike solidified my suspicions. In our no-fault state, assets would be split equally, granting custody to Amy while making me responsible for child support. As our incomes are comparable, I wouldn't owe alimony or the equivalent called separate maintenance in our jurisdiction. Regarding the children's paternity, Mike recommended a DNA test. Presenting 2 sets of photographs, I sought legal action against Bartram for emotional infidelity and neglect of policy by their workplace regarding superior-subordinate relationships. This could compromise Amy's job and escalate financial responsibilities, Mike cautioned. I acknowledged the risk. Mike followed through with his plan. I wanted to discuss a few more matters, and he advised against staying at home and surrendering control with the children involved. He proposed we coexist temporarily until the divorce proceedings sorted out, and the court set rules. Let the court decide who stays and who leaves, but keep in mind that courts here typically favor the wife, particularly when children are involved. It might be a challenging path ahead, Mike warned. Upon my return home, Amy wasn't happy. You had to tell Janet, didn't you? We could have resolved it, but you brought her into it, she grumbled. She kicked him out because of you, I replied. It's not because of me, Amy. It's because of what you and he did, and I regret that she kicked him out. It will only make finding him more difficult, and when I do, I guarantee his prized possession will be inoperable for a while. That night, as the household slept, I got up at 3 a.m. to swab my children's cheeks with Q-tips. I left the samples at a nearby lab on my way to work and offered additional payment for quick testing. My words resounded in my mind. Remember, Rob, you were warned. Rob stayed with me. At the bank, I entered at 9 a.m., emptied our safe deposit boxes, and rushed to another bank nearby to open an account under my name. I knew I would have to explain this during the divorce proceedings, but it gave me the means to pay for the house and care for the children. Back at work, another idea struck me. I canceled all our joint credit cards to prevent Amy from accumulating cash advances. This precautionary measure proved vital. When I returned home that night, a man handed me an envelope saying, "You've been served. You must move at least 500 feet away from this house due to the temporary restraining order in this document." The document inside confirmed that I was forbidden from approaching within 500 feet of the house, Amy, or the children. Amy's lawyer had acted promptly, unlike Mike, but neither of us had foreseen the necessity. As I looked up, Amy smirked at me from the house. Drove the car to the intersection to contact Mike. Upon informing him, I inquired about recovering my possessions. He suggested connections within the sheriff's department and pledged to look into it, subsequently calling me back. During our conversation, I directed him to alter the divorce grounds from irreconcilable differences to infidelity and initiate legal action against both Bartram and Amy's corporation. I stressed, "Go after them aggressively, Mike. Make them pay." He phoned back in 15 minutes, stating that deputies would arrive at my house within the next half hour to aid me in accessing it. For now, I could only retrieve my clothes and hygiene items until the court made additional decisions. In about 20 minutes, 2 patrol cars appeared at the house. I started my car and positioned it behind them. The deputies introduced themselves, advising me to await their signal before proceeding. They then proceeded to the house and knocked on the door. After Amy responded and following a short conversation, the deputies motioned for me to approach. They cautioned that I was only allowed to take my clothing and personal items before being led inside. On my route to the stairs, I glanced into the kitchen to confirm the kids were safe. They weren't there, but Hal was present, consuming a beer I had bought earlier. Despite feeling enraged, I refrained from arguing with him due to the deputy's presence. As we ascended the stairs, Amy remained in the doorway, watching me pack. Overcome by an immature impulse, I commented without looking at her, "This time, you really made a mess, Amy." During the day at work, I contemplated our relationship and eventually determined that we could no longer resolve our problems. "Love you? Some love, Amy," I whispered to myself. "Emotional abuse, a restraining order, our chances are lost, Amy. Consider that when I'm gone. Reflect upon it." We were on the verge of resolution, but your actions sabotaged it. Your drinking my beer in the kitchen was the final straw. I closed my suitcase, turned, and left the house. The next day, Amy called me at work, suggesting a conversation based on our previous discussion. "Absolutely not, Amy. Your behavior yesterday, along with granting me access to your forbidden home, effectively ended it and shattered any remaining chances for us. Moreover, I can't meet or talk with you due to the 500-foot restriction. Farewell, Amy." 2 days later, I returned to the house under court supervision to collect my possessions. Throughout the process, Amy kept pressing me to talk, but I ignored her until I was loading the last items into the U-Haul. Inside the bedroom, amid her appeals for reconciliation if I'd communicate, I gestured to the master bathroom counter where men's toiletries that weren't mine were lying. "Farewell, Amy. Know that you've brought this situation upon yourselves, as it could have been avoided." The series of events started when Amy was handed legal papers at work accusing her of infidelity. Simultaneously, Hal faced a lawsuit for his role in the breakdown of our marriage. Both individuals and their employer were then involved in a court case due to the lack of enforcing policies against supervisor-subordinate relationships. As a result, 3 days later, both Hal and Amy lost their jobs. Since Hal was Amy's superior, he faced the majority of the consequences. However, Amy disputed her dismissal, claiming that Hal had threatened her job security if she didn't comply with him. The company did not find her account credible, leading to her termination being upheld. Subsequently, Amy filed a lawsuit against them for wrongful termination. Throughout this legal turmoil, Amy and Hal continued to live in our home. 3 weeks following the service of papers, we attended a hearing to extend the temporary restraining order. The judge declined the request and scolded Amy's lawyer for presenting it. A week passed, and we attended the preliminary divorce hearing. Mike warned me that the situation wasn't promising. They were likely to grant temporary custody of the children to Amy and exclusive access to the house until the divorce conditions were set. You would still need to pay the mortgage and utilities, and you might face provisional alimony and child support. Her attorney also aimed to recover the funds withdrawn from the accounts, and I anticipated the judge would address this. I handed him an envelope, saying, "This could impact the child support decision." After reading it, Mike reacted, "Wow, Rob, I'm genuinely sorry. Do you have any idea who the biological father is? I suspect Amy believes it's his, but for this initial hearing, Child Protection Services will probably verify the documents. Nevertheless, it will affect the final divorce settlement." "Will I get a chance to speak?" "Yes, but be cautious with your words," he suggested. The proceedings largely followed Mike's prediction. Amy was given temporary custody of the house and children, along with provisional alimony. I was ordered to repay half of the withdrawn funds from our checking and savings to Amy, except for a few certificates of deposit that were overlooked. Her attorney requested an order for me to cover his fees, but Mike intervened. "This isn't a typical divorce situation where my client is sued and his wife responds. Instead, she initiated the action against him. She should bear her own legal expenses." The judge agreed with us on that matter, and I couldn't help but smile when, based on advice from Child Protective Services, he set the child support amount. Mike objected and presented a DNA test, confirming I was not the child's biological father. I was instructed to pay temporary child support until CPS verification is complete. If the documents are correct, any financial aid I provided will be subtracted from my wife's share of the settlement. I observed Amy when Mike questioned the paternity of our child, and she showed no sign of surprise, indicating that she was aware all along. Regarding the house, the judge inquired if I understood the court's directives. I understand the ruling, but not the reasoning behind it. Why is my unfaithful wife being granted custody of our children? Is it advantageous for them to reside with a woman who brought her lover into the home on the same day she filed for divorce? What kind of example does that set? We have barely been separated for 6 weeks, and she already has another man in her bed. Furthermore, why should I continue to maintain a house for the man my wife cheated with? The judge merely ordered Child Protective Services to investigate my claims and report back within 10 days. Upon leaving the courtroom, Amy confronted me, saying, "How could you do this to our children?" "They are not mine, Amy," and your response when Mike suggested a DNA test clearly indicated that. She didn't express shock. She'd expected it all along, another debt I owed her. "Fine, whatever you say, just make sure I get the money tomorrow." She left. Unaware to her, getting even a penny of that money soon was unlikely. I thought I could postpone payment for weeks before facing possible court action for contempt. Even then, I believed I could prolong it by another week or two. The day after the hearing, Mike contacted me about a settlement offer from Amy's previous employer. "It's not ideal, and I think we can negotiate a better amount. Since you're more familiar with these matters, I'll leave the decision to you." To be honest, my lawsuit against them was primarily to get back at Amy and Bartram. I'm satisfied knowing they lost their jobs. On another matter, we shouldn't anticipate much from Bartram, especially since he's jobless now. Whatever funds he might gather will probably go towards his ex-wife for child support and alimony. Continue the pressure on him to pay his legal fees. If we succeed, we can secure a judgment against him, serving as a continual reminder of his actions. Mike's comment about how possibly paying alimony made me recall I hadn't spoken to Janet in a while. I contacted her to inquire about her situation. "Things aren't going well. It's challenging with Hal being unemployed and not meeting the court-ordered payments. Luckily, I withdrew funds from our accounts before I kicked him out. Unfortunately, things may get worse. It turns out both my kids are Hal's biological children, and he might owe Amy child support once my divorce is finalized. Or maybe not, given they're living together. They are? I wasn't aware. How's your lawsuit against Hal's previous employer advancing? I don't have a lawsuit against them. Why would I? I explained the circumstances, and she expressed gratitude for the update, stating she'd consult her attorney about it. I offered, if you need any help, just let me know. I'm not suggesting what I believe you're inferring, and pray tell, what is that? Merely because of Amy's actions doesn't imply I'd retaliate against you in a similar manner. That's quite an ill-founded presumption. After expressing my apologies and terminating the conversation, her concluding remarks left me disgruntled, maintaining a grim mood all day long. By quitting time, I was impatient to confront Hal. Assuming he would be job hunting due to his unemployment, I took the next day off, positioning my car up the street from his house at 6 a.m., anticipating the children's departure at 7:20. At 8, Hal's Chevy Blazer emerged from my garage and traveled down the street. I followed him to a downtown parking garage. Parking nearby, I hid, crouched down, and positioned myself between him and the elevator. Upon reaching my spot, I stood up and greeted him. Good morning, Hal. It suits me well, yet I can't claim the same for him. As he tried to escape, I managed to apprehend him, spin him round, and forced him against a concrete pillar. Subsequently, I inflicted physical harm upon him, culminating in 6 strong kicks to his lower body. The next day, 2 police officers showed up at my workplace, detained me for assault and battery. I spent the night in custody and stood before a judge the following day. Upon hearing the charges, I declared myself innocent. The judge inquired, "Are you confident in your decision to plead not guilty? Mr. Bartram is adamant that you attacked him." To which I responded, "Yes, I did confront him, but I don't view it as assault and battery." Then what would be your definition? Administering justice. I find your viewpoint perplexing. He deceived me with my wife for years. He fathered the 2 children that he and my soon-to-be ex-wife led me to believe were mine. He had to bear the consequences. Although what you say might hold some truth, infidelity isn't criminalized in this jurisdiction. Hence, I chose to act independently. The law holds little appeal for me. In instances like mine, the legal system seems inadequate. My spouse has been unfaithful for years, leaving me burdened with the responsibility of her lover's offspring. What do the courts do? They side with her. She retains the house, and I'm compelled to cover the costs while she brings her paramour into our home. I end up supporting my unfaithful partner financially through alimony payments. And when the divorce is finalized, she'll receive half of everything she acquired dishonestly. The courts seem to favor the wrong party. I find myself on the losing end due to the same legal system you extol. If justice won't be equitable for me, then I must take matters into my own hands. You claim I violated the law, and you acknowledge this fact yourself. No, I haven't. I'm asserting that I am seeking the justice I am entitled to. I'm ready to present my case before a jury. I won't let the court's resources be squandered on this trial since you freely confessed to attacking him in that manner. Consequently, I have no choice but to convict you and sentence you to 6 months at the Fairmont County facility. Incidentally, your actions have aided me in seeking justice for my wife. For those 6 months, she won't receive any alimony or child support. Since I won't be making the mortgage payments either, given her recent job loss, she won't be able to keep up with the mortgage payments. Consequently, the house will foreclose, leaving her and her lover without a home. My imprisonment also means losing my job, which means no money for her upon my release. So, thank you. Are you prepared to forfeit your home's equity? But what equity are we talking about? We borrowed against it for central air and a pool. Selling it wouldn't bring much after costs, perhaps just a few thousand each. I'd rather she lose even that. I won't see any of it anyway. By the time I'm released, I'll owe 6 months of back alimony. I am confident the legal system would divert any received funds towards settling that debt. The judge merely nodded in response. I spent 4 months in county jail. Mike visited me regularly, and during his 3rd visit, he discussed a settlement proposal from Amy's previous employer. I instructed him to accept it, deposit the check promptly, and keep the money apart from Amy. A surprise awaited at the end of my first month when Amy appeared for a jail visit. Only approved visitors are allowed. You provide a list, and they verify if an unlisted person wishes to visit. Despite not being on my list, I was intrigued enough to consent. Sitting opposite her, separated by a barrier, Amy smirked and said, "The orange suit doesn't suit you. The options for clothing here are limited. What do you want from me now, Amy? I require some funds sorted out as the mortgage and utility bills are overdue, and my efforts to find work have been unsuccessful. You wouldn't be facing difficulties feeding your children if your partner hadn't assaulted my wife instead of pressing charges. Consequently, our financial predicament wouldn't be so dire. He is the one who put me in this situation, so address your monetary concerns with him. When it comes to their care, they are his responsibility. He should provide for them. How can you argue otherwise? Yes, he shares biological ties with them, but you have been their father since day one. They are not aware of how. All they know is that he is in our home while I am still married to you. I'm telling you, Rob, you are their real father. You have stood by them from the start, offering them unconditional love until you learned about Hal and me. You cannot simply turn off your affection for them, Rob. They are blameless in this situation. If you are enraged, channel that anger towards me, not them. The problem, Amy, is that if I give you money for food, it won't only sustain the children. It will also support both you and Bartram. I wouldn't harm you as I did Bartram, but I wouldn't feel remorse if both of you were to face hardship. Aren't you worried we might lose the house without your involvement? You're referring to the home you evicted me from, the one you now share with your partner. Since Bartram is the head of the household now, he should contribute more. You ought to exert more effort in finding a job, Amy, and encourage Bartram to do the same. He's struggling to find work, and most of what little he earns seems to be taken by Janet. At least he has that tool you admire so much, so it's not a total loss for you. That's ironic, Rob. It hasn't been particularly impressive since our confrontation. Well, Amy, I'm sorry for the disruption I caused in your life. After all, life can be challenging. I chose to walk away. My sister Megan was my only consistent visitor, seeing me once a week. During one of her later conversations, Megan disclosed that Amy requested Megan to persuade you for financial aid. Amy claimed it was solely for the children. You might want to consider it, Rob. I don't like seeing the kids in hardship, Megan suggested. Her intention is to fight for full custody once she's out. Her strategy is to show that Amy can't properly look after them, especially with her living with Bartram. If their unfit biological father and Amy can't even provide food, the courts might take my case into account. The fact that I want custody, despite Bartram being their biological father, shows how much I care about them. Interacting with Amy could jeopardize my goal. Moreover, I don't trust her. After deceiving me for over 6 years, I find it hard to believe anything she says. Would you be upset if I helped them? I'm currently in jail, Megan. I can't stop you from doing what you believe is right, was my response. However, Megan didn't offer them financial assistance. Amy procured apparel for the children and occasionally supplied them with groceries. It transpired that Amy had acquired a respectable job. Nevertheless, domestic tranquility eluded them. Bartram ceased his pursuit of employment as he felt the available roles were unworthy or inadequately compensated. Upon learning this from their conversations, Megan became aware of the frequent quarrels between Bartram and Amy about Bartram's idleness at home. This knowledge brought me a sense of satisfaction. During my 3rd month, Janet startled me with an unexpected visit. Since she wasn't on my permitted visitor list, they inquired if I desired to see her. Intrigue led me to consent, reminiscing our last conversation and questioning her purpose for visiting. Seated opposite her, she commented, "Orange isn't a flattering color for you." "I've heard that before. What brings you here?" I asked. "I feel remorseful," she answered. "Remorseful? For what reason?" I inquired further. "For treating you unfairly," Janet confessed. "When did this occur?" I probed. "Our recent phone conversation. I was irritable and disillusioned towards men, yet that didn't justify my words." "I apologize," Janet asserted. Indeed, you made me upset, but let it be. I also wanted to express gratitude for something, I mentioned. You gave me a reason to thank you? Janet appeared perplexed. You hadn't realized it, but you did. An old college friend of mine is a nurse at our doctor's office where Hal goes. She informs me that Hal has been discussing erectile problems with Dr. Marlin. It appears his performance issues are apparent, which coincidentally aligns with what he inflicted upon me. It might intrigue you to know that your wife is not reaping the benefits of his infidelity either, I revealed. Is that true? Janet seemed surprised. Absolutely, I confirmed. Our discussion continued until she ended the call, asking me to contact her when I was free. I served a 4-month sentence in county jail, but was released early due to overpopulation. After completing 2/3 of my sentence and being considered harmless, I became eligible for early release despite the assault charge. Mike waited to pick me up upon my release. He drove me to a weekly rate motel where I rented a room while searching for an apartment. Along the way, Mike filled me in on recent events. Amy isn't contesting the divorce, but she's fighting for custody, alimony, and even child support. I think she won't succeed, though. I'll request a hearing now that you're out, and after that, it's just a waiting game, Mike informed me. What's your plan for the settlement check from Amy's employer? He asked. I'll safeguard it from her until the divorce is finalized, I replied. Now that you're released, you'll probably be called to court over the payments owed to Amy. No problem. I'll just explain that I couldn't pay her while in prison. They might argue I could have arranged it or told her where my bank is. No way. Despite the courts being biased towards women for accessing funds, it could potentially work to her advantage, Mike pointed out. Following the deception and treachery, I wouldn't put faith in her not to exploit any opportunity if possible. The following morning, I dropped by my job and inquired about vacancies from Frank, who told me to knuckle down and stop bothering him with trivial questions. That afternoon, I phoned Amy to arrange for visitation with the children, only to be met with laughter. When I receive some money, she replied, then you can see the kids. The call ended, and I contacted Child Protection Services, sharing my inability to see the children due to Amy's denial. They informed me that she had the right to refuse access since I wasn't the biological parent, and her maternal rights prevailed. Visitation was contingent on court approval, so I needed to address the child support matter in court to lift the order if I wanted any chance of custody, I commented. I'm unable to disclose our judicial suggestions, she declared. Following thanks, I contacted Amy, arranging a 7 p.m. meeting with the children while carrying cash. I won't leave you unaccompanied with them. I'll be there, she replied. I withdrew $500, tucked it into an envelope, and arrived punctually at 7. Amy welcomed me, spotted the money, and stepped aside. My spirit plummeted upon seeing Bartram in the living room, who swiftly departed, mirroring my surprise. Brian and Susan fixed their gaze on me from the couch. I anticipated a happy encounter, but Susan's question shattered my dreams. Why did you harm our father? Mom claims Hal is our true father. Amy's smirk underscored her influence. Aggravated, I turned for the door. Amy laughed. Return soon, grabbing the envelope. I retorted angrily, rot in hell, you treacherous harlot. The sequence of events progressed rapidly thereafter. I was summoned before the court and instructed to pay Amy the initial court-ordered sums, along with overdue alimony and child support. I told the judge I would rather die than give a dishonest prostitute a penny. He threatened me with contempt charges if I didn't comply. In response, I said it was the first sensible thing he had said, and he sentenced me to either a $500 fine or 30 days in jail. I chose the latter. On the 29th day, I went back to court. The judge asked if my stance had changed. I stated that I wouldn't pay child support for children even the court admits aren't mine. CPS confirms this. As for alimony, I'm fine with that, but I won't cover house payments while my estranged wife continues to harbor her lover. Remove him and I'll resume payments. You claim CPS confirmed you are not the father, the judge asked. Yes, they did confirm it, I replied. I will adjourn this hearing to verify your claim with CPS, he announced. Leaving the courtroom, I saw Amy's angry expression. She realized the child support decision might go in my favor and was enraged. She had been counting on another victory against me. The next day, I went back to court again. The Child Protective Services report established that I wasn't the children's biological father and that Hal was residing with Amy. This led the judge to cancel the child support payments and reduce Amy's alimony by one-third retroactively. Despite this, I still had to settle the outstanding payments and household expenses. The judge's decision took everyone, especially Amy, by surprise, ruling that since Miss Ludi shared a boarder with us, she would be responsible for utility bills and home insurance. Initially, I was prepared to contest the verdict and wait another 30 days. However, I decided to comply. My reasoning was somewhat unconventional. Amy would be displeased about the judge's decision, but her mood might improve seeing me back in jail. I felt compelled to deny her that sense of triumph. While she may find some pleasure in receiving money from me, paying less than expected, coupled with the absence of child support and the smirk I'd give her, would diminish her joy. The judge demanded payment within 48 hours, or he'd issue a warrant for my arrest. The smile I offered Amy upon departure seemingly enraged her, adding delight to my day. Back at the detention center, I was discharged, then made my way to a restaurant for a satisfying meal. Post-dining, I went to my sister's place to gather belongings she stored from my motel during my confinement. We conversed, and I shared Amy's impact on the children. Megan suggested not to take it personally. Children are impressionable, especially when their primary influence is absent. Since you were gone, Amy was all they had. You will have a chance to talk to them. However, that opportunity never materialized. At the last court hearing, I was taken aback. Amy was granted full custody, and my visitation rights were denied. As per the CPS report, both the mother and biological father believed my presence would disrupt their lives. Given that the biological father intended to marry Amy and form a family with her, the judge decided it best for the children to avoid any interaction with me. The judge decided that Amy could continue residing in the family home until the children turned 18, after which the house would be sold and its proceeds divided between us. If Amy were to marry before then, the house could be sold promptly. The reduced alimony payments remained, with me required to make them for 3 years or until Amy remarried, whichever occurred first. I was enraged as I exited the courtroom. Upon passing Amy, she smirked and gave me a dismissive gesture. A week later, I became agitated and planning ensued. Though my judgment may have been biased, I had been wronged by Amy multiple times, causing me to lose control. I canceled the homeowner's insurance and monitored the house, waiting for an opportune moment. Following the cancellation of the insurance, Amy contacted the mortgage company. They alerted me that I was the one who terminated the insurance. I did. Given the financial predicament you've put me in, I'm looking to reduce expenses. I can find similar coverage at a lower cost elsewhere. They mentioned Allstate. Within 5 days, we must establish a household policy, or they'll arrange one at extra cost. The individual I conversed with recommended securing the policy due to their insurance company being pricey. I will handle it. 2 days later, an opportunity presented itself. Amy left for work soon after the children went to school, and at 8:30 am, Bartram departed in his jacket. Upon his departure, I activated the garage door using the remote. To my astonishment, it functioned. I drove in, retrieved 2 5-gallon gasoline containers from my trunk, and entered the house. After saturating the interior, I exited my vehicle and ignited the house. Subsequently, I traveled to the airport, parked in long-term parking, and boarded a flight to Panama City. There, I spent a month basking in the sun and socializing with women, some of whom I successfully charmed. On my last day in Panama City, I rented a safe deposit box at a bank and prepaid for 10 years. I drained my bank accounts before traveling to Florida, hiding the money in a safe place. I anticipated serving prison time due to my actions, but I didn't care. I abandoned Amy without insurance coverage for the fire damage, leaving her with nothing. She might pursue me, but while incarcerated or not, she wouldn't get a penny from me. Even after release, it would be challenging for her to get a single dollar. Upon my return, I dropped by the store to gather my belongings. During my visit, I apologized to Frank for leaving him in a difficult situation. He empathized since he'd gone through a tough divorce himself. He then asked if I had exhausted my feelings and was prepared to resume work. I replied negatively, informing him of the probable imprisonment. Upon asking why, I disclosed it. He chuckled, expressing a desire to have the courage to do something similar to his ex. I contacted Mike and suggested a lunch meeting at Mario's. When he arrived, he cautioned, "You've caused quite a stir this time. You might want to settle things with everyone before you return to work. You're facing intense backlash. It would have been wiser to remain where you were previously. Your actions in defying the court order concerning the house were considered contempt. The district attorney has a range of accusations against you, including arson and property damage. As for Amy, she wishes to punish you severely due to her regular punishments. However, it's worth noting that Amy no longer has control over Bartram residing under a roof. How dire is the situation? How can they implicate me in arson? It was my house, and I didn't engage in insurance fraud. In fact, I canceled the insurance to prevent any claims. The mortgage company may be displeased about losing their security, but I still owe them the loan. I made a mortgage payment just last week. As long as I continue with payments, they can't seize me. It was my property, and I had the right to manage it as I wished. From your standpoint, perhaps, but the court won't likely share that viewpoint." The judge was correct. Following a month of legal disputes, I arranged a plea agreement with the state correctional facility at Albion, serving a term of 3 years. With good conduct, I could have been eligible for parole halfway through. However, when parole was extended, I refused. I didn't wish to expose myself to the very legal system I had grown to detest, with its incessant regulations and constraints. As a result, I ended up serving 2.5 years. While imprisoned, Mike, my sister, and even Frank frequently visited. Frank consistently urged me to visit him upon release, and Janet dropped by a couple of times, urging me to contact her post-release. During my confinement, I also filed for bankruptcy, managing to discharge all debts except the one owed to the IRS. They objected to my declaring home interest on my tax returns, even though the property no longer existed. Even in prison, the IRS insisted on their repayment, demanding tax filings and penalizing income that didn't adhere to their guidelines. At Bud's bar, as I sat next to Megan sipping a chilled PBR, she asked about my upcoming plans. "I will meet Frank, go back to work, find an apartment, and attempt to restore some form of social life." "Will you visit the children?" "I'm not hopeful. Amy has manipulated them with her indoctrination. Visiting the kids means seeing Amy, and my initial instinct would be to strangle her. She doesn't wish to see me either, still seething over the destruction of her possessions. Over time, she's evolved. She truly regrets how things turned out. She acknowledges her affection for you and admits that her affair was merely physical. She didn't intend for you to discover it. She's willing to allow a relationship between you and Brian and Susan. Show some mercy towards her man. She was acting out of vengeance, like you were, and the children were merely collateral damage. They've spent weekends with me, and they miss you. You should reach out to them again. I find it difficult to interact with Amy. If you could arrange for them to be picked up and brought to your place, let's try making contact again. I recently visited Frank, and he suggested I could return to work whenever I feel ready. I requested a week to get accustomed to freedom. I traveled to Panama City to collect my money from the safety deposit box and returned home afterwards. I paid off my debt to the IRS, found an apartment, and invited Janet out for dinner. I have been spending more time with my children every other weekend since reconnecting with them. My relationship with Janet progressed to several dates, but we realized that being in a romantic relationship was not ideal. I met a new partner, and our relationship is moving towards marriage. She seems extraordinary to handle the responsibility of being with me and my children. Yes, I now have custody of the children. Amy remarried, but her second marriage encountered problems when her husband discovered her infidelity. Unlike me, he chose violence instead of taking photographs. He took a weapon and unfortunately ended both their lives tragically. Because our state abolished capital punishment, he received a 20-year-to-life sentence. I mail him a box of cigarettes monthly, accompanied by a thank you note. With Amy no longer in the scene, I petitioned the court for guardianship and was granted it. Now, the children reside with me. Seems like there's some truth to that saying.